Hello everyone, welcome back to channel Musa Game here, and today I want to talk to you about the Infantry Complete Guide series. Now, this is actually a remake of the very third video that I actually made for this channel entirely. And the reason why I'm actually doing this is, for one, there has been a lot of changes in terms of the meta, as well as some information about the new upcoming commanders that are coming to the game. So a lot of things that I would say in Season of Conquest will change for infantry, and so that's why I'm actually giving this an update. And two, because at every stage of the game in Rise of Kingdoms, whether you're in Pre-KvK, KvK1, KvK2, or Season of Conquest, there hasn't been a single guide that can actually provide you all the information that you actually need in terms of what you should do in terms of equipment, open field, rally, garrison, and on top of that, how they perform in relative to other troop types such as archers and cavalry. Now, what this guide is specifically designed to do so is that it actually provides you insights on how good your set is when compared to other troops by ranking them in specific ways. As you can see on the rank side, I give an S if your aspect of that troop type. Let's, for example, we're talking about equipment, right? If I gave an S to your equipment, that means there's no match on other troops in terms of power level, efficiency, whatever it is. Your troop type will have the best equipment for this stage. It's basically what I mean. Then A means that it's meta but replaceable. B means usable. C means recommended, not used. And F means unusable. So the reason why I'm doing this kind of ranking system is so that you can actually compare that which troop type is actually better than the other troop types in each stage of the game. So, and Rise of Kingdoms has 4 different stages of the game. They're starting off with Pre-KvK stage when you spawn into a new server and you have zero idea what you're doing and you're just fighting amongst your server mates that you spawned into, and you're fighting for the kingship. And during this stage, everything that I'm talking about in terms of equipment, open field, rally, garrison, all those meta will be very different from KvK1, which is when you first enter the server versus server fight, KvK2, which is the server versus fight number 2, and then Season of Conquest, which is basically the server versus server fight number 3 and onward, which is when basically your all your end game commanders actually release, as well as all your equipments for Season of Conquest equipments, that is, are released for you, so that you can actually maximize your power level of your commanders at the end of the day for your troop type. And this is a guide that's designed for people who are maining infantry. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be building an infantry just because you're maining cavalry or archer, but this is just a guideline for people who are trying to main infantry. And also at the same time, if you're considering rallying or garrisoning, this will also give you like what are the best pairing that you can use during this stage. Whew, that was probably the longest intro that I actually made for this kind of video. Let's just get right to the video and start off from Pre-KvK stage. Now, as I mentioned before, Pre-KvK stage is when you first spawn into the game and you're like, oh well, there is another governor city nearby. Let's just go ahead and attack it, plunder it, whatever it is. And you basically fight for the kingship of the server amongst your server, and basically prepare yourself for the very first KvK that is coming up around, I think, 90 days of you going into the kingdom, or third phase. Maybe I'm remembering things wrong, but basically that's the stage that you're in. And infantry in specific actually excels very, very well for the very first 3 stages of the game. And let's just start off from equipment. And equipment for infantry, I gave it an A plus. I didn't give it an S because I think cavalry has the very best set for you to start off from blue set to epic set to budget set to basically the full legendary set that you can build during Pre-KvK stage. But I think infantry is just right up there. It's just a hair below cavalry because of this piece right here, blue shield. Now the shield for blue's piece for infantry will give you, I think, like 9.5% health. And the problem with that is infantry is a troop type that benefits the most with gaining health. And although other troop types also, for other troop types, health is probably the most valuable stats for other troop types as well. For infantry in specific, health is probably the most valuable, and health efficiency is just crazy on infantry. It's basically all you need to know. And with that said, this blue piece equipment, once talented, is arguably almost as good as a legendary weapon for infantry, and could potentially be better if this legendary equipment piece is not talented, is the general sentiment amongst players of Rise of Kingdoms who play this game for a long time. Now, for that reason, that blue piece being so material efficient, that means that you can allocate your materials on other resources, other places that you can actually do, such as, your like Hope Cloak, which is very, very useful, which is going to be usable towards the end game and stuff. So that, and especially given that the equipment actually takes up most of your materials, more so than even I think like chest piece and pants. I think accessories are slightly more, but then again, yeah. So given this fact, I think infantry has one of the best equipment sets in the game, hands down. Now, this is what I recommend for blue set. I'll recommend that you use the head and chest piece for a windswept set. And then there's this infantry exclusive gloves that you can actually find, which will give you 5% health, 5% stats. Now, that 5% stats is only 0.5% stats lower than the epic set. Although this gives you, I think, full defense. And this gives you, I think, 4% attack and 1% health or defense. I can't remember off the top of my head. So this piece right here is really, really strong as a blue piece. And again, I'm not gonna say more things about this shield thing. This shield is awesome, and it is again as equivalent of a power as an untalented legendary weapon piece. So very, very strong piece. And you should just build this and then actually move on until even when you use legendary sets. And for the pants itself, this is the attack pants. For those of you who are not familiar with the game, health is the most valuable stats in the game, hands down. And then defense is the second most valuable stats in the game. And then attack is probably the least favorable stats in the game. And the fact that you get attack from this piece alone, it's really bad. I would, if it is possible, I would recommend that you actually skip this. I know that this is going to be really tough for people who are just entering pre-KvK stage, but if it is possible, I would say you can skip this piece if you already have the epic Caracas piece for pants, because this gives you health and a tremendous amount of health, in fact. So, and this gives you so much value that arguably this is, again, one of those pieces that once talented, this could be better than the untalented, uniconic version of legendary piece. So very powerful skill, that piece. So yeah, if you can skip this, you can, but if you can't, just go ahead and use this blue piece pants right here. And then the boots, oh my god, this boost is amazing. This boost will give you a lot of health, I think. And I think this gives you 4% health as far as what I remember. And once talented, it will give you like 5.5% or something like that. That is a very, very strong blue piece. So if you want, I think you can use this until you actually switch it over to the legendary piece. Again, maximizing health for infantry is going to be key. So, and then once you go into epic set, upgrading the helmet is fine. I think the chest piece is fine. The main piece that you need to upgrade before you actually move on to legendary piece is this one right here, the pants that will give you a lot of health. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm not gonna go over it a little bit again. But yeah, very, very cost efficient piece right here. And then if you go into legendary set, unlike other troop types where I recommended full legendary set, I would say, if you're building other troop types as well, I would say you should basically use a budget set of this, which I think you should definitely use the Karukak's pants, and then the Hope Cloak you can actually get from Lucern's Scroll, which is very easy for you to get. And then for yourself, who's, let's say, getting legendary pieces from elsewhere, like, the egg event and whatnot, I would just focus on getting either gloves, shoes, and then perhaps this drum right here. And so that you can actually maximize your upgrade here, which will give you 70.5% stats, but then again, 21% health. And for infantry, this is arguably as good as the technical best set that will give you 92.5% stats overall because of how valuable health is as a stat. So if you're actually invested in infantry but not really, you actually want to explore other options such as cavalry and archers as well, and you're not the rally garrison lead, I would say it is arguable that you can still garrison and rally with this budget set because health is almost twice as valuable as attack stat. And then from upgrading from budget set to technical best set, you only gain, I think, a lot more attack in my opinion. There's some defenses that are gained here and there, so it's up to you, but that's basically what I would recommend. If you're rally garrisoning during pre-KvK stage, I would just work on those pieces that I actually highlighted in legendary pieces. I would not force a dagger nowadays, but if you are rally garrison lead in pre-KvK stage, KvK1 stage, KvK2 stage, forging a dagger for you to use for those period very early on is probably worth it, because it's just your rally garrison lead. You're going to fight for the best efficiency of the server. So that's what I would still recommend that you use a dagger if you have to craft an accessory. But Karukak's drum, 100%. You should basically build this 100%. And if you're uncomfortable about building a dagger, you can just use Silent Trial, which will give you rage reduction debuff on the enemy, which is just fine. So yeah, so that's what I would actually suggest in terms of how you can actually move on from blue set to epic set to budget set to technical best set for pre-KvK stage. And most people, even if you're Mega Kraken, I think technical best set might be difficult for you to actually reach at this stage, pre-KvK stage. So this is just, think of this as a guidance for you to work on for KvK1 and KvK2 until you actually reach Season of Conquest, which I'll go over in a bit. And open field. So solid open field with Charles Martel, Sun Tzu, or Bjorn. And you can actually have swap options such as Purist, Metmed, Ethelfled from the Gold Key. Now, the cool thing about infantry is that infantry has this commander that is infantry commander called Sun Tzu, who is at the power level of an expertise commander or better at pre-KvK stage. He is probably the strongest area of effect damage DPS commander in the game until you actually enter KvK1. So with that said, what you have to do is actually put a legendary commander that can protect Sun Tzu in front of him, such as Charles Martel, and then amplify the damage of Sun Tzu, who's about to use active skill as a secondary commander. So what I recommend, I think Charles Martel and Sun Tzu is the best pairing for pre-KvK stage, like hands down. And Pierce is a really good commander, so if you really want to build your second infantry march, which is going to be tough because then you have to make another set of another set of equipments and so forth for pre-KvK stage, which is going to be tough. You have to spend a lot of money, you have to spend a lot of resources, you have to spend a lot of equipment materials. You know, if you're thinking about building the second infantry march on the field at this stage, I would say Pierce and pair it with either Ethelfled or Bjorn will be probably your best bet on that. So yeah, so that's basically it. But overall, very very meta. Only reason why I couldn't give it an S is because cavalry is going to cheat on you with an expertise legendary commander that they can expertise just right away called Minamoto by spending $200. And those Minamoto expertise Minamotos, just because they have those Minamoto's expertise, are gonna just far outperform your 5111 or 5511 charge mortal that you're still working on. So that's why I couldn't give infantry an S tier for open field, but very strong, very strong. In fact, if we assume that everything is expertise, I think infantry is the best open field, hands down, for pre-KvK. So it is what it is. But yeah, I gave it an A for that reason. Rally wise, I don't think infantry is the best rally lead for pre-KvK stage. If you have a good and very powerful cavalry mains in your alliance, I would just let them rally with I think Minamoto Cao is probably the best rally lead, or Minamoto Met is probably the best rally lead for pre-KvK stage. But if you have to, I'll say something like Pyrrhus and another leadership commander such as Met or Frederick will do the max damage for rally. But then again, they cost so much for you to max and make it usable in KvK1 stage. Because they're from a thing called gold key commander, and you cannot accelerate those gold key commanders. Getting the pieces and the shards for the gold key commanders, unless you spend a ton of money. So with that said, rally meta for infantry in pre-KvK stage is pretty gloomy. So I would just let the cavalries have their fun for the pre-KvK stage. It is what it is. Whatever. Let them nuke down something, and then you can focus on garrisoning, which is the next section right here. This is the only troop type. Infantry is the only troop type that can actually garrison at this stage of the game. You can either use Charge Martel or Sun Tzu, or if you want to do more normal damage to everything, if there's like 50 different troops that are going to swarm your garrison, you can technically use Pyrrhus for that normal damage buff. But in all honesty, Charles Martel Sun Tzu is the best garrison commander pairing in pre-KvK stage, in my opinion. I don't think there's better options, to be really honest with you, with pre-KvK stage. So just run Charles Martel Sun Tzu and you'll be golden. You'll do a lot of AoE damage. You'll be super tanky. If someone's approaching your flag, just put Charles Martel Sun Tzu. If someone's attacking your city, just put Charles Martel Sun Tzu, and just put basic equipment in there, and it will outperform almost anything that you can pair that you can put, unless you have like a mega whale technical best set for infantry or archers or whatever. Overall, pre-KvK report card, infantry receives an A. Probably would have been the best troop type if cavalries were not getting infantry Minamoto for free. Not free, but they're basically getting infantry Minamoto for free if you compare that to the cost of you maxing out a charge martel at this stage, which could mean like thousands and thousands of dollars just spent on getting the gold keys and stuff. So yeah, and as well as the value of the gold heads they actually invest in charge martel during this stage. So yeah, A is good, meta, very meta. I would even say A plus potentially. Actually, I'll bump it up to an A plus. How about that? very, very, very strong troop type to begin with. All right, let's just go ahead and move on. KvK1. So equipment still A plus, and I actually don't really need to talk about anything else, but I think this basically bottom here is basically what I wanted to talk to you about. KvK1 equipment. So this will provide you guidance on how you should upgrade your legendary set. So let's say you basically you went through your epic set and then you went through your budget set and you reached your technical best set for your infantry. Now, how do you upgrade there from there onward? So my best recommendation is that you actually get the legendary set and then iconic to all of them, because they will give you extra stats for iconic 2 tiering. And the way you do that is you can first iconic 1 through iconic crystals that you can get from KvK1 and KvK2, KvK1 and KvK2. And basically after that you can use another blueprint, and it will only cost you 1 blueprint for you to actually iconic 2 your equipment, to basically give you that extra stats that the iconic 2 provides. It will give you, I think, somewhere around from 1% to 3% to 2.5%. I think the weapon gives you 2.5%. If you don't have, maybe 2%. I think the weapon gives you 2%. Untalented. If you don't have what's this called, KvK weapon, I think KvK weapon gives you 3%, then extra 1%, or something along the lines of that. So iconic tier 2, just get that pure stats that those iconics would actually give you. And also at the same time, if you got really lucky with the talented, just be happy with it. Still work on iconic 2. And iconic 4 order. So after iconic 2ing, I don't recommend that you talent right away, because talenting is a very costly thing for you to do. It could cost somewhere from 1 blueprint to 4 blueprints, depending on how bad your luck is. And if you're a noob like me that never gets lucky with those, just don't touch a talent order, because when you iconic 4 some of those equipments, you get all damage bonus for each situation, either way you're garrisoning or rallying or on the field. And those all damage buffs that you actually get from iconic 4ing, more often than not, will actually outscale the talent that you actually get from those. So I recommend that you iconic 2 and then iconic 4 and then talent for every single equipment that you actually have. And this is the order in which that I do recommend. I want to go over a little bit. So I do recommend that you get the Eternal Night, the Hope Cloak or Eternal Light iconic 4, because you actually get, and this is for rally and garrison only. I actually recommend you get the Eternal Night iconic 4 if you're actually not a rally garrison lead, because that will give you, I think, the open field damage. And then if you're rally or garrison lead, you can actually iconic for Hope Cloak, which will give you, I think, the rally and garrison damage, all damage. And then you can actually work on your weapon and helmet. But if you're one of those people who are cheap like me, I will actually skip the weapon and helmet, to be really honest with you. These will give you the most value, but then again, you will eventually swap out your weapon and helmet to a different piece at the end game when you enter Season of Conquest. And also at the same time, and then work on your gloves and boots. Now, I do want to give you a fair warning that if you're in KvK1, KvK2, if you can get your hands on leadership pieces for infantry, for boots and pants, they will give you a lot more health. So by all means, I think that is probably the most meta equipments that you can choose from for infantry. Let me actually add the screenshot right here. So yeah, actually, I just realized that these are kind of outdated in terms of the technical best set. Nowadays, you can see that this piece right here is actually the technical best set you can build for infantry even during the KvK 1 stage, so you can actually use it for seasonal conquest. Uh, and this right here, I think, was basically made without considering the option of leadership gear equipments, to be really honest with you. But then again, there is a benefit of you using this Eternal Night equipment because of the fact that you get those blueprints a lot faster, because you can buy those just off of the KvK shops. So if you want more accessibility, you want more power right away, just basically use the Eternal Night is fine. A lot of Mega Whales still use Eternal Night at Iconic 5. But if you're actually talking about legendary set that is technically the best in terms of equipment, this is the one that you should use right here. Let me just go ahead and highlight this. Yep. So legendary set for technical stuff. But then again, all these don't really matter in terms of legendary set, iconic 4, talent order. It should still go in that order, but it just changes what the technical best set is for infantry, I think. Alright, and I just paused the video and updated the rest of this video for the equipment pieces. But anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So that's basically the order in which that you should upgrade. Again, this is a technical best set that you should be working on because of the health that this leadership piece provides, as well for the pants and boots. And I think the infantry specific Eternal Night provides you, I think, defense, a little bit more stats of defense, but then again, still health is just too valuable for infantry. And then I think the boosts also provide you defense. And given that you can't really benefit from set bonuses anymore because you're breaking the 4-piece set of helmet, chest, gloves, and shoes, it is actually better for you to actually use this one right here, which is gonna actually no, this was 3-piece set, 4-piece set with the helmet, weapon, gloves, and boots. And given that you're actually breaking the 2 pieces from the pants and shoes, I just recommend that you use the gloves here instead. It's basically what I think the technical best current meta, the best equipment pieces that you can actually find for infantry, I think. All right, wow, that was a long time. That was a long time that I actually needed to do this. But yeah, the reason why I gave it an A+ is because Hope Cloak is actually going to be very accessible because it's actually, you can get that from Luciner's Scroll. You can also get the Eternal Night, the pants from the KvK shop, which is a lot more accessible than other pieces. But then again, with the leadership gear here, this option technically is the better option for leadership pants and boots. So for those of you who are wondering what you should be building towards, this is the one that you should be building towards. All right, let me actually move this to Pre-KvK 2. All right, hopefully that's, so next time I don't really need to update this while I'm filming the video. Sorry about that. All right, so on the open field, I think infantry has the best open field, hands down. It has Richard and YSG, which are the 2 Wheel of Fortune commanders that is a level ahead of everyone else. And infantry is the only troop that gets 2 of them in the first KvK. Well, not YSG, but then again, most of the time, YSG can be used behind any troop types. So, for example, if you're cavalry main, you can't use Richard or Charge Metal for any of your combos, but if you're infantry main, you can use Isongye behind either Richard or Charge Metal. For archer, you can't use Richard anywhere on your combo, but then again, for infantry, you get both Richard and Isongye added to your main marches on the open field. That's why I meant for KvK1, you get 2 Wheel of Fortune commanders that are usable for your main open field, and that's why Infantry has the best open field meta in KvK1. There's no really point for us to argue. Even if you use Charge Metal with Isongget, that is going to be destroying anything in terms of power level on the field. Same way it goes with Richard and Isongget, that is just going to be so tanky and so much damage that just use those 2 marches, then you'll be very, very, very good in open field. Rally is a little bit tougher for infantry still, because a lot of your primary commanders for infantries are either gonna do tanking or sustaining. But you can still do Charge Mattel and Richard for the maximum normal damage, and pair that up with Lee Sung-ge. So let me say that again. So you can either run Charles Martel and Richard for the best normal damage and sustainability rally, which will last forever, or you can run Charles Martel, Richard, and Lee Sung-ge, which will do tanky AOE. So we can run very, very tanky rally, but then again, it's not really that good to a degree because of the fact that rally, the point of you rallying is for you to actually melt down the garrison as soon as possible. And just having 2 different DPS marches like Minamoto and Isongye for cavalry is still better, in my opinion, than having one tanky, one DPS march, one tanky commander and one DPS commander march. So that's why I give it A minus, but still usable because of how strong those commanders are available in KvK1 for infantry, is really honest with you. So that's why I give it A minus. Garrison, infantry is still the only troop type that can garrison at this stage. There's no point in arguing about it. Charles Mattel, Lee Sung-ge, or Richard. Lee Sung-ge just makes it very tanky for garrisons, which is why I gave it an S. And overall, infantry just wins KvK1 hands down. It's the best troop type for you to actually use in KvK1, especially given that you have both Richard I and Lee Sung-ge added to the game. Sorry about the delay on the whole equipment piece stuff. And yeah, just use these. And yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to KvK2. KvK2, equipment-wise, nothing changes. So I'll just go ahead and skip the equipment part because of the fact that you don't really get new equipment pieces. And you're basically going to build towards the iconic 2, iconic 4, and talenting of all your pieces that you have for legendary. Using Eternal Night and set boost are fine. I just want to actually clear that out. If you already built those, just use those. But if you haven't built those pieces, go ahead and craft the leadership boosts and pans, because they are technically going to be the best at the end of the game. And no one's going to discriminate you just because you actually had the infantry specific boosts and pans. It's just going to perform a little bit worse. It is what it is. But equipment, amazing. All usable. Armament, though, I think KvK2 is when the armaments actually do become unlocked, so I actually need to basically give it a rating. But I think infantry's armaments are fine. You have to use Wedge at this stage because you don't really have normal damage dealing commanders here, so I'll actually give it an A minus. It's still meta, but the fact that you can look at the arch's direction, because the arch is going to be the main armament that you'll be using as soon as you exit the KvK2, is kind of what I will bump it down from A to A minus. Which best for now, and arch better for future. Pretty simple. Let's just move on. Open field, infantry is still the best open field troop type to main in KvK2, and that is because of the fact that you'll be adding Alexander the Great to your lineup. Alexander the Great is a very strong commander that will be available to you through Wheel of Fortune, And he is so powerful that he's actually usable now on the field on Season of Conquest Commander, along with commanders that are 4 years, 5 years outdating him, but still is very, very strong. So Alexander the Great, and having him added to your lineup as you enter KvK2, just destroys open field meta for infantry. Cavalry struggles really, really a lot because of the fact that how strong infantry people are. And because how strong infantry is during KvK1, KvK2, is probably why I think most people start maining infantry at this point. But yeah, very powerful. I'll run Alexander the Great and Richard just because of how they synergize with one another, with shielding and healing and unkillable, but still do a lot of damage with Alexander the Great's the third skill that does single target damage of 1700 whenever you're auto attacking. And then the second march of just running Charge Martel at Isonge, which would do tanking AoE. Amazing. So yeah, that's why I give it this. Rally still not technically the meta though. Alexander the Great doesn't really have an active skill that does damage. It does shielding and then do like damage from the basic attack stuff. So I would say archers actually have the best rally during the KvK2 stage, where addition to archers lineup at KvK2 are just made for rally meta and rally meta only, which are the Edward Woodstock and Tomeris, which are both used for archer rally in KvK2. So I would not touch rally if you can, but if you need to, you can utilize Alex and something else, or you can still run something like Richard and Charles Martel that will be basically practically unswervable, which is all fine. You can, yeah, but I don't recommend that you rally as much as possible on KvK2 as a infantry main, but I strongly recommend that you actually garrison here. You can either run Charles Martel or Richard with Constantine or Wu Zetian, and they will be just basically unpenetrable in KvK2 unless you're severely outnumbered, is basically what I would say. And this is, again, the only troop type that can garrison at this stage, in my opinion. So, garrison, gets an S. And overall, infantry gets an S for KvK2 stage. Best troop type to main in KvK2. Hands down. Alright, let's move on to Season of Conquest. Now, I've been talking for a very long time, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Alright, so I actually updated this final Season of Conquest best set after pausing the video a little bit. And what this is, basically, equipment-wise, I think infantry gets a B plus to A minus, just because of the fact that you're missing a lot of health from your piece set. I think the only area that you can get health from is actually the leadership set, and that's why a lot of people are actually switching over to this piece right here. But before leadership equipments actually came into the game, infantry had 0 health from the final Season of Conquest set. So that's why I gave it a B plus A minus. They technically probably has the least favorable equipment sets of all troop types, to be really honest with you. But then again, still a great set with the addition of leadership. The fact that you have to steer away to leadership set is why it deserves a B plus A minus. But let's just go over each piece right here. So as you enter Season of Conquest, you basically gain access to Season of Conquest helmet and Season of Conquest weapon, and 2 accessories that are basically practically the best pieces of equipment that you can craft in Rise of Kingdom at this very moment. Now, with that said, you should still run your leadership pants, leadership boots, hope cloak, and the gloves that you can get from, I think, KvK shop or Lucifer Scroll. You can get this from Lucifer Scroll. You should still run those 4 pieces, but you have to swap out the helmet, weapon, and both of the accessories for you to get the best benefit, the strongest equipment set for Rise of Kingdoms at the end of the day. So I'm actually gonna erase these two because it's just actually no. I'm just gonna write optional, not recommended anymore. So yeah, so basically you get those pieces. I recommend that you just craft those right away as soon as you can, so at your earliest convenience. And then for Season of Conquest equipment though, I would actually suggest that you at least talent the horn first. And I think if you want, you can still do Iconic 2, but then again, after Iconic 2, you should still try to get the talent first, especially on the horn. Because what talenting does is actually going to give you 30% more, I think 33% of the stats that you actually gain and the buff that you gain from either equipment pieces or accessory pieces. Now, Horn in Rise of Kingdoms is so powerful that what it does is it actually generates 30 rage with 30% chance or something like that. Or 50 rage with 30% chance. And that rage regeneration is so powerful that talenting this, even if it takes 4 different blueprints to do so, it's going to be more powerful than iconic 4ing the horn, in my opinion. So that's why I said talent those first. And the order in which that you should be talenting is the horn first, and then the Ring of Doom, which will give you, I think, with 10% chance to gain 50% or 65%, depending on whether you critted it or not, talented it or not, for 2 seconds, which is very powerful equipment. And then you can work on your weapon for the extra, I think like somewhere like 7.5%, some crazy amount that you can actually gain of stats from this. And then 5% from talenting the helmet, I think. 4.5 or 5%. I can't remember 100%, but crazy amount of defense that you can actually get from talenting it. And then iconic 4ing all of them is basically what I would recommend. If you want more immediate power still, you can still iconic 4 earlier. But for Horn and Horn alone, I would say talenting is just a better option, no matter how many blueprints that it takes. Now, iconic 4 order, I just put it based on whether or not you're rally leading or fielding. If you're fielding, get the weapon and the helmet because it will give you the on-the-map damage bonus. If you're rally leading, you need all the rally or garrison lead damage buff from iconic 4ing the accessories. So it's really up to you in terms of the choices. And then mass iconic everything is basically at the end of the day what the goal that you should be aiming for. And I am going to actually change this to this one. Again, this is probably the technical best set that you're going to need anyways. I didn't change this because I would need to actually update all those numbers and stuff here too. So just bear with me on that. So equipment, meh. The fact that you have to touch leadership kind of bumps it down a little bit. Let's just move on. Armaments. Okay, armaments. I'll still keep it as A. Arch overall best for both garrison and rally, because I think infantry is in a smite meta right now, but you still need wedge for skill damage commanders like Ragnar Prime and Skippy Prime and Guan Yu. So you need a secondary set of wedge, but your primary focus should be arch, and getting all special talented, special inscriptions on those is basically gonna be the goal, except for the very first slot. I would say though, I'll add a little bit about pincer. Pincer being added, but still need to look at final details on inscriptions for it to beat arch. So there's a new formation that will just bump up smite damage instead of normal damage, which basically excludes out the basic attack and counterattack damage buff that arch provides. But it will be of higher percentage, I think. than of buffing than, let's say, normal damage buffs. So, but for Pincer to be stronger than Arch, I think it takes a lot more stats that it should give than, let's say, something like, I think I did the math in the other video. You can check it out on my channel. But for Pincer to be better than Arch, it needs to buff like this smite damage by, I think, like 40 something percent, like 39%, on top of whatever Arch already provides. So yeah, this is gonna be tough from special instructions only. So we'll see. At this point, we don't have the pincer information in the game yet, so this could change very much. But armament wise, just in relative to other troop types, I think infantry is pretty good. Open field is A plus. This could potentially be S because of the fact that we're going to add Bai Chi to the game. And I personally said it before in other videos. I don't think Bai Chi is going to be better than Arthur because of how conditional his rest of the set outside of the first two skills, which is do a lot of smite damage on the field and do a lot of buff for yourself. But the fact that you're getting a commander on top of the already kind of overpowered palette of commanders that you already had at infantry, given that you're going to actually get a very, very, very strong AoE smite pairing for Liu Che, could change the meta in open field so that infantry is in fact the best open field troop type to main in Rise of Kingdoms. So I'll just add that note right there. BG could make infantry open field as having another Liu Che class commander can destroy open field meta. Yeah, so I'll just put a question mark. Here. So yeah, so that's basically what I think. It could be the S. It could actually just push cavalry out of the main open field meta, just because of how strong Liu Che already was, because of how strong other Ragnar Prime, Skippy Prime, Guan Yu were already really, really strong. And if you're adding the Bai Chi on top of that, it just sounds really crazy. So that's my speculation. Let's just see how he turns out to be in the game, because a lot of his sets is actually something that's new mechanism in the game, and it promotes a gameplay style that actually is not really useful, like people are used to. So I think it's pretty tough to make the call at this point. Rally Scipio Aemilianus, and another smite damage dealing commander or anti-swarm commander is basically the rally meta right now. But I don't think infantry really has the best rally at this point. I think we're living in a cavalry rally meta, which is run with Attila and Subutai. So I'm gonna actually bump this time to B. And it's outclassed by Archer Rally for sure. Archer and Cavalry Rallies. Actually, I'm gonna bump it down to B minus. Because yeah, if you're gonna use Rally for your server, you should just use Attila Subutai. If you don't have Attila Subutai for whatever reason, it's otherwise occupied, or you don't have cavalries to burn, your server is going to use Asher Venipal and Henry and Asher Venipal in that order. So Scipio Aemilianus, although he's a great commander standalone, he doesn't have the best pairing, I think, at this point. So I think that's why I would need to put the rally down to B minus. However, the garrison is going to be great. Gorgo Hera makes a perfect unswarmable objective for this point, although it is kind of being outclassed by Attila Subutai at this point. But that still is the best combo that you can use in terms of garrison, in my opinion, at this point. Now, is Tokugawa Ieyasu going to actually change the meta? No. I really don't think so. I think Gorgo still is a better commander. And Hera, I don't think you can use Gorgo and Tokugawa Ieyasu in all honesty, because Hera provides you a lot of normal damage reduction and a lot of counterattack damage buff. None of which I think Tokugawa Ieyasu provides at the end of the day. And Gorgo and Hera as a combo is so good because of how unswarmable that garrison is. So I'll just add a note here. I don't know if I'm actually spelling his name right. Tokugawa edition will not change the meta. But yeah, what Tokugawa Ieyasu does, it does a lot of shielding, it does a lot of damage with the smite, and it also has like procs for shielding and stuff, but nothing that Hera can't provide. But he misses a big part on the damage mitigation from normal damage, as well as the what's this called, the counterattack damage that Hera provides right now. So that's why I think you can't use Tokugawa in place of Hera. Can Tokugawa replace the place of Gorgo? I really don't think so, because if you actually use Tokugawa with Hera, it's just basically a mighty shielding over and over. And I don't think you can do I don't think it really works as good as running a Gorgo Hera, in my opinion. So yeah, that's basically what it is, in my opinion. Overall, I gave it an A. I think it could be S. I think I'm actually going to make a note here that it could be S. It really depends on how good Bai Chi is on the field. If Bai Chi turns out to be the meta breaking, I think Infantry can turn out to be the best troop type for you to main in Rise of Kingdoms, even after KvK 1 and KvK 2. Yeah, and KvK 1 and KvK 2 is never going to change. The meta of KvK 1 and KvK 2 is not going to change unless Lilith does something about it, in terms of, okay, well, we're adding new cavalry commanders or archer commanders into KvK 1 and KvK 2 and not infantry. And that way, I think it could change potentially, but that's not fair. And I don't think anyone really wants to do that. I don't think Lilith cares too much about KvK 1 and KvK 2 as much. So I don't think that's going to change. So KvK 1, KvK 2, infantry is the best troop type for you to main in. Season of Conquest, very solid. Not the best at the moment. It used to be the best, I think, before Arthur came onto the game, and I think infantry just had too many good options. But if Bai Chi actually revives infantry open field, I think it will be number one troop type for you to main in the game. All right, now this is the final report card for infantry. I know I talked a lot, and my apologies for the little confusion in the KvK 1 stage, where the technical best infantry set, I actually didn't think about the legendary set before, but as I was running this video through, I was like, hey, what is the best set for infantry? It's actually the leadership pants and boost included is the best set. So I made a live update, so that's why it took the video a little bit longer, in my opinion. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found this video helpful. If you guys did, please go ahead and drop a thumbs up and subscribe to the video. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next video. Thank you.